What's quacking, guys? It's the Duck Chris, and today I'm going to round out 2025 by looking at some updates that happened throughout the year, and let's just give them a grade, put them in a tier list, see how it went, because it was a big year for OSRS. Starting off January 8th, we had run energy changes. Now, if you may have forgotten or not noticed because you're maxed like me, they kind of went through with the run energy changes mostly to help the lower levels where your agility seems to not matter much until you hit like 40 to 60. You run out of energy really fast, and you need energy potions or staminas to really get anywhere if you want to run. Now, a lot of us just got used to walking, but ultimately I think that they wanted for the new players for it to be a bit better. So what they did was they went through some run energy changes to make that a little better, and the drain rates a little smaller, and also I think agility helped a bit more. Overall, I'm gonna rate this like a C. I think it's like kind of did what it was intending to do, in that like I didn't really notice it as a max player, so it wasn't a huge buff, but in theory it helped a little. Might bump it up to a B just because they didn't totally wreck it, and it's not like bad, but definitely not like a great update that was worth spending a lot of time on, and something that I feel like they might revisit to make more dramatic changes later down the line. Next up, we have bank, QOL, and mini menu improvements. So Mod Ash worked on a bunch of this. There was some like you can lock your tiles, you can lock some runes. There's like you don't have to use bank fillers anymore. And additionally, the mini menu. So the mini menu is like when you right click something in game and then it pulls up a second longer menu. This most notable on things like the max cape, things with a lot of teleport options during leagues as well. So definitely useful. I think overall this was a good change, although I gotta say like some of the bank improvements that I'm going to be lumping in with this, even though they might have happened later in the year, such as the rune pouch names and stuff, weren't amazing. So let's put it in B, but just above the run energy changes. Okay, moving into February, we had the Royal Titans. So Royal Titans was the first of the duo bosses this year. I'm going to put this straight up in A. I think A is a little generous for what ends up being a mid-level boss. But I like the focus on duo. I like the focus on, it being something new and different in terms of how you play without breaking the bank, without totally changing the meta. We got the elemental crown staff, which is like cool, but not game breaking. Feels like a high B, maybe low A, but let's leave it an A for now. And of course that came with some combat achievements and stuff as well. Nothing too crazy. Okay, we have collection log updates. This actually happened at the end of January, so moving back a little bit. But I'm going to use this collection log staff to indicate what this was. So I'm kind of torn on this one because like I voted against it. I really didn't think it was going to be good in terms of like having a physical item to represent your collection log. But in the end, I think it turned out well. So I'm going to put it above Royal Titans here in A. I really like the collection log interface changes, how they have the screen that shows you your most recent additions. I didn't mind it being added to the high scores. And of course, it gives them a little more focus on clogging for stuff that happened like the sailing release, where they dropped some more interesting collection log items just because they know people like to go for them. And I think that was a really positive change. So overall, I think the collection log changes were very positive. Let's go to POH improvements. So this was kind of a minor update, but I thought I'd throw it in. As to the end of February, this is kind of a game jam thing. They added some the ability to swap your mounted heads. They added the ability to put new stuff, I think, or there was new styles. You can sit on your thrones, and basically just like stuff that makes sense to have in your POH. More rooms, blah, blah, blah. I don't think overall this was an amazing update. I'm going to put it here in C. It's not bad per se, but like when we have limited resources for the mod team to work on, I think this is an example of something that could easily like have been shelved or not prioritized. Obviously it was game jam, so no huge loss there, but Yeah, generally just something that I don't think we needed to work on, so I don't know if it was worth doing, but C is fair for that. Okay, moving into March. Let's talk about... This is a pretty empty month now that I'm looking at it. They did some like updates, they did some polling, blah, blah, blah. And they brought us permanent Deadman worlds, which I haven't put on here because I don't think it's a major update. They kind of made an update to that. Moving into April and May, we have just a lot more quality of life stuff as they're prepping for Vlamore, the Final Dawn. But May is when Yama comes out. Yama and Stackable Clues. So let's go do Stackable Clues first, because Stackable Clues is something that people end up liking a lot. I'm going to put this probably high B. I think Stackable Clues was always going to happen. Once it started happening in RS3 and in leagues especially, people were like, wow, this is awesome, we need to have this. And for the longest time, the mods were like, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do this. But it happened. The community kind of wears you down. They kind of decide what you should be doing. And if enough people meme it into existence, it'll happen, as shown by the Holy Molies that just came out. So, Stackable Clues, let's put it in high B. I think it was a solid implementation for an idea that I didn't really like, but it worked out. It didn't ruin clues. It didn't ruin, clogging. And I think it's made casual clue scroll doing a little better because you can, not leave your Slayer task, and that's nice. Then, Yama was the next one, and let's find Yama. Oh, I don't have Yama on here. 1 second. Let's get Yama on here. Okay, we're back. Yama. Let's put him right up here. I think, while it's not my favorite boss, I think Yama is a great update. It is really the type of update that we should encourage the mods to strive for. It has solo play, it has duo play, it has a high level alternative, it has drops that add to the meta without totally replacing, what's going on. Oathplate, I don't know if it's great or not in terms of an addition, but it clearly didn't break the game, and it made things a little more interesting and a little more powerful, and so they were desirable to go for. The horn, questionable, but the contracts and the death charge and stuff useful and not too crazy. Overall, I think Yama is very polished. The graphics look great. The animations look great. Especially the falling giant meteor boulder is hilarious. It was a great animation and a great work. I think Yama overall is just an amazing update. It's an S tier update from 2025. Moving on from Yama, we have the Summer Sweep Up. So Summer Sweep Up was pulled in June and included a whole bunch of combat changes and adjustments to various content around the game, including... Let's go through it one by one. So starting with TOA, there's a lot of Baba changes. Baba stops doing as much damage through prayer. The baboons and stuff are a bit more easy because they take max damage, and that was just kind of consistency because they already did that mostly, but they gave it for the cursed ones and the shamans and stuff. Small changes, and they also changed a little bit of the loot. Now this is something that could have been a little bit better, I think, just because obviously everyone knows that the Fang is in the toilet and the Shadow is a bit OP and everything else is kind of mid. So they were trying to address that, but still haven't necessarily fixed it. Time will tell if the prices adjust a bit better. But overall, it's commendable that they're trying to work on it. They also added a bunch more elemental weaknesses. I think elemental weaknesses, again, another case of something I didn't really like at first, but it's kind of been implemented in a way that was not so disruptive and not so bad. So I, kind of commend the mods on making that decent. And then there were some loot table changes, which, if you weren't around at the time, people were mad about that. There were some seeds removed and some, stuff changed from Torstal seeds for sure. But, overall, it worked out. I think a lot of the changes, such as other minor changes, such as Ward of Arceus working in a few more places, the Huecoatl being a little easier and a little more rewarding. We had some better animations and like less punishing stuff at Grotesque Guardians. Halberds being able to hit flying enemies, and Zulrah, Demon Bane weaponry being effective at the Ice Demon. These are like stuff that makes sense. You can show your Zuck Helm to get the on-task benefits in the Inferno. You don't get the improved chance, and you don't get the Slayer experience, but you get like the ability to do speed runs and full speed, pet hunting and stuff. So overall, I think like the summer sweep up, this is like something that the mod team does really well. I don't know if this one was quite S, but I'm going to put it as S just because, well, let's put it at top of A, because I think it's like very good. Not as impactful this time as it has other times, but, still very appreciated that the mods are doing this sort of stuff for us. So Vlamore, the Final Dawn, came out at the end of July, and I'm going to be ranking this one with the main update as well as three of the sub updates, being Doom, Gemstone Crab, and Veil Totems. So Vlamore Final Dawn came with the new quests, a couple new quests actually, new area expansion, blah blah blah. And yeah, I gotta say, it's an S tier update. It's like, as area expansions go, it's one of the best. We've had really bad area expansions in the past. We've had very good area expansions in the past. I think with Vlamore as a whole, they have knocked it out of the park. The Final Dawn, had a little warts here and there, like how come you can't click any of the trees even to examine them? How come, there's so many creatures that just exist but don't do anything? But all of the Vlamore stuff is still there. New places, new aesthetics, new Easter eggs, and of course new activities. Starting with Doom. Doom of Mokayatul, I'm going to put an S, and I don't know if everyone agrees with me on this, because it is not everyone's favorite boss, and especially on release, people were pretty mad about it a little bit here and there. But I just think having a boss like this in the game is so cool and innovative and changes the way you play. You're not going for that regular loot. You're not stacking up alkables. You are just pushing and pushing and pushing to survive. And it makes brews good, and it makes food good, and it makes our prayer renewals good, and it makes, playing perfect that much more rewarding, because you really want to reach the next level. And of course, when you finally stack up level and level and level and see that glowing burrow hole, it's all that much more rewarding. So I think the Eye of Ayak is a very interesting weapon, and something that's been able to break into the meta despite Shadow being so overwhelmingly powerful. It's still useful. It's good against sailing monsters for some reason. Like, it's a very cool and unique weapon. Having a combined boot slot is really nice, because we were starting to get to the point where not only did we have the 3 boots for the combat styles, but we have Arania boots, and we had Guardian boots, and we had Devout boots, and it was getting to this point where there's not really that much use for something like an Eternal boots, a Pegasians, and even Primordials in some cases were not as used. So to combine those, to bring him up to speed in the meta, and to make that really something that everyone wants, it's a great choice, and I think it was time. Obviously, Cerberus hasn't fully crashed yet, so I think it's still useful, and something that is not endgame necessarily these days, as it is kind of a mid-level monster, although it's locked behind a bit of a higher Slayer level. I digress. Doom, overall, great update. I would put it bottom of S. So not as good as Yama, but still quite good. Veil Totems was part of this. I don't really know where to put this update, because it's like, on one hand, you could say it's an A tier update. It's the first fletching update we've had in a while. It's, it's fun. People like the actual activity. They like the aesthetics of it. They like the story. They like the rewards. They like the loop. It uses logs. It feels like fletching. But on the other hand, for something that's the first fletching update in a while, like, we didn't really get anything from it. It's a short activity with only a couple collection log slots. It's not really rewarding. The XP rates are not anything to write home about in terms of fletching. It uses a ton of logs and doesn't really give you much back. So it drains your resources if you're an Iron Man. And overall, like, I think it's a bit of a missed opportunity. They could have done more with it, like, if it's the first fletching update that OSRS has really had, apart from like adding a random ammo here or there, they could have made it more rewarding. This is a whole activity. You're going to be fletching during it. Why not make it something that produces fletching products for people to use, and not just make fletching a little faster or a little more convenient? Overall, I think Veil Totems, it's probably more worth to work on than something like the POH update. So I'll probably put it there. I could even be bottom of B. Maybe I'll switch this down here as well and put it above that. Because I think overall it was certainly better and more useful than something like the run energy changes, but it could have been better. And I think it's really like what's holding it back is what could have been. They could have used this opportunity to make a fletching activity that was more than just a bit of a distraction. And they didn't. And then finally, the Gemstone Crab. I was maxed combat when this came out, so I didn't really have much use for this guy, but I have to admit, he's pretty cool. I'll put him right under the Summer Sweep Up. Actually, I'll put him above the Summer Sweep Up. Why not? Because I think like one of the things that the Gemstone Crab does really well is encourages people to get to max combat. People love to try out all the PVM combat in this game. They love to try out all of the different, things that Jagex has brought into the game to make it more fun and more engaging. But, when they're sitting there at 60s, 70s, even 80 combats, and they're like, oh, like, this combat is so hard. Like, I can't kill, Jad. I can't kill Zuck. I can't kill the Great Olm. It's like, dude, a lot of times you just need to get your combats up. Like, you just need 99 attack, 99 range, 99 magic, and 99 strength. And if you have those and then you use your potions, you're going to hit a lot harder and more reliably, and you can stop crying about defense and damage and whatnot, and learn the actual strategies. So I think the Gemstone Crab is great for that. People need to get to max combat if they want to be able to try out everything that's in the game. And I don't think Slayer for training your combats was really doing it anymore. Being able to sit there in AFK Bloodvelds for like 100 hours to get 99 strength is kind of lame. And, people were doing Nightmare Zone and other things that were not fun at all. So I think having something in game that is like a dedicated way to try and get as much combat experience as possible in a more fun and social way than just soloing Scurious is great. And of course it's AFK, and the aesthetics are good, and the memes were really funny. Overall, a great update. So combined, I'm saying Veil Totems was C, top of C, Gemstone Crab top of A, and Doom bottom of S. So I don't know if that makes the Final Dawn an S tier update, but I'm gonna say it was. And I'll throw in, the quest and the aesthetics and anything else that goes along with that. And I love having a full and open map as well. I think that's a really underrated part of the update. So that was Vlamore, the Final Dawn. So that was in late July. Then August, we had pretty much just more cleanup of stuff from the Summer Sweep Up poll. We had tweaks to Vlamore, and we had prep for the next part of the year, which was going to be sailing. Just kidding, it's Gridmaster. So Gridmaster was a surprise update that was dropped on us in the middle of October with basically 2 weeks notice. As they had said that it was basically going to be a test of the bingo system, but it ended up being a bit more than that and became like a mini leagues, and also just kind of showed what they could do in terms of like having a player event that is not leagues, that is a bit shorter, but that still has that extra, pop and polish of a Jagex temporary seasonal event, something that worked out really well. I think Gridmaster was great. Some people said that they, miss leagues because Gridmaster was so short, but honestly, I think leagues often like gets more glazing than it deserves. Hot take. Just because like after the first week of leagues, a lot of people aren't as into it anymore. And Gridmaster was designed exactly on that timeline. Most players who were decently into it could finish it in a week or so. And the best players were done in a couple days, or one day in one case or two. So I think overall Gridmaster is a bottom of S update. It could be top of A just because it didn't change everyone's life. But I think the fact that it was the first, small community event, mini league type thing, and it went over so well, it shows that like it was a great idea. It was a great idea. It was executed really well. There were almost no bugs. The tiles worked perfectly. The bonuses worked perfectly. The items were, very fun to have back in our hands from the last leagues. And it was something that ostensibly was a test to lead to future greatness. So all in all, bottom of S tier update, and the 4th overall S tier update of the year. And then finally, let's talk about sailing. So sailing, it says Aelin. It seems to have been cropped off here. Top of S, man. Hot take. No. Let's put it second. So sailing ended up being, a skill, which I think people forgot because they were like, oh, sailing's going to be crazy. It's going to have new bosses. It's going to have blah, blah, blah. And like, it didn't really. It had some new monsters, but the combat sucks. But that's fine because mostly it's a skill. And we got, AFK, we got mid intensity, we got high intensity methods, and we got, clogging, and we got exploration, and we got, boat upgrades and like the RPG elements there. Like sailing is everything I could have wanted from a skill. It is, it widens the game, but it doesn't totally replace the game. It has a lot of opportunity to be integrated into future updates and back integrated into existing areas such as, the east side, the wilderness, like the mostly harmless area. And it has a lot of opportunity to, just be something that is fun to do. If people want to, go out and do some deliveries, go out and do some Barracuda trials, or just keep training the skill, pet hunting, salvaging, whatever needs to be done. I think sailing knocked it out of the park. It was as good of a skill as I could have asked, especially for a first time, where like people don't really know what it's like to have a new skill in old school, but now we do. We had the race to 200 mil all. We had the race to 99, and those were both cool and fun to watch. And obviously, I think everyone wanted to go to 99. As far as I know, I know in my clan, in my group of friends, like everyone trained right to 99, not just the people who are maxed. And in our clan, it's like most people are getting 99 by now, or 95, or kind of getting up there. So it seems like it was a good month to 2 month, because it was November 19th when it came out. So it's a month to 2 month of content for people to be able to train to 99. And then more so afterwards, if you want to do the clogging, if you want to do the combat, if you want to do the, whatever else it is, completionism, maybe get your boats up, maybe get some paint on it, maybe get some cool fashionscape going with your boat, get your maxscape back and that sort of thing. And, this is only the first batch. I'll say this is I'm looking at sailing as this batch right now, but of course every update has to be looked at a little bit in terms of like how it will affect the game going forward. And there's tons more to come with sailing. There's more quests, more areas, more everything. And I think that's super cool, and it makes sailing an S tier update. So overall, we got 5 things that I'm putting in S tier: Yama, sailing, Vlamore, Final Dawn overall, Doom, and Gridmaster. In A tier, we got Gemstone Crab, Summer Sweep Up, Collection, Log Updates, and Royal Titans. B tier, we got Stackable Clues and the Bank and Mini Menu Update. Then C, I'm putting Veil Totems, Run Energy Changes, and House QOL improvements. Honorable mention, I would say, to when they announced that they were going to cancel Project Zenaris. Maybe controversial, but I was not a fan of Project Zenaris, and I think it would have totally taken a ton of resources away, and instead we have the main mod team working on stuff like Gridmaster that shows that we can still have plenty of fun, cool events just from the mod team, and we don't need to have private servers, basically. So here's your OSRS 2025. I want to congratulate Jagex on a great year. Looking forward to another great year of 2026. We should be getting leagues. We might be getting raids 4, and we should be getting some more sailing stuff. I'm very excited for that. So thank you for listening if you made it this far. I haven't uploaded a video in a long time, so there's a lot of stuff that I forgot how to do, such as talking this long. But thanks for watching. Leave a sub, leave a like, share with your friends, and I'll post the tier list maker in the description, and you can check it out on your own if you want to make your own tier list and share it with me. I'm not on Twitter anymore because screw that website, so hit me up on Discord or in-game, I guess. See you out there. Peace.